Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the tall grass of a medieval meadow. The kind that stretches damp and endless under the early stars. There's a warm buzz in the distance, not city lights or highway hum, but bees. Hundreds of them, thousands, somewhere nearby, someone is humming to match. You can almost smell the wild thyme and damp wood of old hives. The tang of smoke and honey in the cooling air. This is your world tonight. And before you say it, yes, we're doing an entire bedtime episode about medieval beekeepers. Why? Because they wore absurd hats, whispered to bugs, and carried little bells for reasons that may or may not involve ghosts. It's ridiculous, it's real, and honestly, you probably won't survive this job without being stung in the eye at least once. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm always curious who's drifting off to the hum of beehives across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly, careful not to trip over the trailing hem of your woolen tunic. Your feet squelch in the soft moss, dew soaking into your worn boots. Around you, rows of boxy straw skeps, old-school beehives, woven like overturned baskets, sit on wooden stands. The air feels alive, full of the whir and dart of tiny lives on invisible highways. You pause, listen, a soft buzzing orchestra plays, rising and falling like breath. Someone clears their throat behind you. You turn, and there's a fellow in a brimmed hat that could double as a beach umbrella, wearing thick linen gloves and a veil that hangs like chainmail from his ears. He nods once, solemn as a priest. You nod back. Apparently, you're in the Beekeepers Guild now. There's not much talking out here. Voices upset the bees, so instead, there's a rhythm, motions shared and mimicked, a puff of smoke here, a quiet pat there. Bees don't like surprises, and you are, to them, one giant, walking surprise. You lift your veil carefully, only a little, just enough to see what you're doing. There's a comb to check. Inside the hive, the bees move like a golden tide, parting and clustering over hexagons filled with honey and brood. It smells like sun-warmed wax and crushed flowers. You try not to think about the fact that, technically, this job is more dangerous than being a knight. Statistically, at least knights have armor. You have a hat, some smoke, and the very real fear of getting stung directly in the nostril. Still, there's something oddly soothing here. The world shrinks to the slow, careful inspection of each comb, the slight lift of weight when honey's been stored. You don't even mind the occasional sting. It's part of the deal. A warning nudge, like a tiny electric handshake. In the distance, a cow moos, someone sneezes, and closer to your ear, you hear the faint, unmistakable jingle of a bell. You glance around. That sound is intentional. Every beekeeper in this field has a tiny bell tied somewhere, on a hat string, a wrist, or hanging from the waist like a charm. The sound blends with the buzzing, but it stands out too, light, bright, deliberate. You lift your own arm and hear it, a gentle chime. Now, here's where it gets weird. The bells are not for you. Not exactly. In parts of medieval Europe, it was believed that bees could be offended by silence, or rather, by being left out of the loop. Weddings, funerals, births. You were supposed to tell the bees, whisper your family news into the hive or risk misfortune. Some thought the bees would leave. Others claimed they'd die of heartbreak. Because apparently, bees are drama queens. And so, the bell, a soft announcement, a musical footnote. I am here. I come in peace. No need to sting me in the eyelid. Thank you very much. Of course, not everyone agrees. Historians still argue whether the bell tradition had more to do with ritual, superstition, or just the practical benefit of giving your fellow apiarists a heads up before you accidentally sneak up on them holding a live bee bomb. You continue your rounds. The path is narrow, bordered by dry grass and tufts of clover. You crouch beside another skep, your knees popping like old hinges. This one's heavy, always a good sign. The comb inside glows amber in the twilight. Nearby, someone hums an old tune. Just under their breath. It's not words, just sound. A lullaby for insects. You find yourself doing the same. Without thinking, matching the hum of the bees with your own. It helps, calms them, calms you. Your breath slows. Then, a sharp buzz past your ear. A single bee. Confused, curious. You hold still. It hovers, inches from your face, like it's thinking of asking for directions. And just like that, it zips away. You stand, stretch, and nearly drop your smoker when a bell jingles right behind you. Another keeper nods again. This one's older. His face is mostly hidden beneath his hat, but his hands are calloused and confident. He points to a small pot in your belt pouch. You open it. Inside, crushed thyme, elderflower, and a pinch of ash. A medieval bee balm. You smear a bit on your wrists. Apparently it keeps the bees calm. Or curses you with eternal love, depending on which local lore you believe. Either way, it smells like someone's herb garden got set on fire, then buried under apples. The sun is lower now, orange across the sky. Bees are retreating to their hives, plump with nectar. You feel it too, the pull to rest, to return. But something in you wants to linger. There's one last skep at the edge of the field, half hidden under ivy, older than the rest. As you approach, a bell chimes again, this time from the branches overhead. You look up, a little charm dangles there, left by some forgotten hand, rusty now, but still ringing softly in the evening breeze. You crouch before the half-hidden skep, brushing ivy aside as gently as if stroking a sleeping cat. The hive hums, low and even, like the soft snore of a creature too ancient to wake. You reach slowly for the lid, fingers brushing cool straw, and as it lifts, the scent hits you. Wax, earth, and something old and warm, like dried apples in a linen sack. Your little bell jingles again as you move, almost as if it's whispering a warning. It's easy to forget that bees in the medieval world weren't just bugs. They were mystical, noble even. In some places, they were thought to be born from ox carcasses, or to carry the souls of the dead between worlds. The bell, they said, let them know you were coming, not to warn them, but to honor them. A soft, musical, pardon me. And if the bell didn't work, well, then there was the hat. You glance toward the older beekeeper again. His hat is enormous, wide enough to shade a small garden, and stitched around the rim with charms, a dried clove, a red thread, something that looks suspiciously like a baby tooth. The hat is ridiculous, and very, very serious. Yours is simpler, just rough wool, with a soft linen veil that drops past your shoulders. It's a bit itchy and smells faintly of sheep, but it's the kind of thing that earns you nods from the older keepers. The way veterans might nod at a new soldier holding the right kind of spear. Your eyes shift to a younger apprentice on the far side of the field. His veil, drooping like a curtain made from grandma's petticoats. It flaps in the breeze. Barely attached, he swats at a bee, and 5 more investigate him with the slow, deliberate suspicion of bouncers at a medieval nightclub. He doesn't last long. By the time he yelps and bolts, arms pinwheeling, veil in hand, you're already smiling into your gloves. It's not cruelty, it's tradition. You return your attention to the hive. The bees here are different, darker, smaller, and strangely calm. Their bodies glisten in the late light, all soft gold and ink. You reach for the frame and lift gently. It's heavy, a good sign. Honey, thick and warm, clings to the comb. You breathe through your nose. There's something magical about this moment, this brief peace between creature and caretaker. But peace wasn't always the point. In many regions, medieval beekeepers were feared as much as they were respected. People whispered that they could speak to the bees, command them, that a well-timed jingle of a bell or murmur into the hive could bring fortune or revenge. Some even believed that beekeepers trained their hives to attack enemies, which, considering how often folks were stung just for sneezing too loud near a hive, seemed plausible. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were born from actual incidents or just a reflection of rural paranoia. Either way, you're starting to enjoy the power. You raise your smoker and give the hive a puff. The bees settle, lazily circling in a dance as ancient as kings. And it strikes you. These creatures predate every war, every chapel, every ridiculous hat. They were here before your Lord was born. And they'll still be buzzing when the manor burns to the ground in a lightning storm or peasant revolt. Probably both. It makes you feel weirdly small. Comfortably so. You think of how beekeepers used to measure time by bees, not clocks. When the last flight of the day buzzed home, it was time to eat. When the first one stretched its wings in the morning, you'd best be ready with your veil on and your boots laced. Suddenly, a strange sound interrupts your thoughts, a dry rustle, like silk over gravel. You glance up. A monk approaches from the tree line. Because of course he does. His robes are patched and brown, a bit like a walking root vegetable. He holds something in his hands, small, delicate. A scroll? A reliquary? No, it's a bell, silver, smooth, and shining faintly in the gloom. He doesn't speak, just nods, and holds it up to his ear. Listens. You suppress the urge to ask, do the bees answer back? But that's the thing. Some people believed they did. In monastic communities, bees were more than livestock. They were tiny monks, industrious, silent, orderly. Their wax-lit prayer books, their honey-sweetened otherwise joyless oat mush, and their hives, some said, were sacred spaces where divine order lived. This monk, apparently, is here to bless the hives, or maybe to spy on you, or maybe just because medieval people didn't need much excuse to walk slowly through a field ringing a bell and pretending it was extremely important. He walks past your hive, rings once, and bows. You do not bow back. You are, after all, trying to remain professional. He disappears into the dusk, bell still chiming faintly. You turn back to your comb and notice something odd. A small hole, drilled clean through the wax. Not from a beetle or mouse. This was deliberate. Sabotage? Bees escaping? A tiny medieval jailbreak? No, you remember now. Some keepers did this intentionally. Punched little tunnels to let the soul breathe, or to give the queen extra air, or because someone's great-grandfather once did it. And that's how traditions work. Historians still argue about that one. 2. Some say it was superstition. Others think it was to manage hive humidity. One charming theory involves fairy passageways. You decide not to choose. It's more fun that way. The moon's up now, just a sliver. The hives glow under it, faintly silver. The field is quieter, but not silent. Bees sleep in shifts, and a few still dart out, searching for a last taste of something sweet before dreams take hold. You yawn. Bell jingles. The hat slips forward, shadowing your face. You sit back, the earth cool beneath you, and gaze up at the stars. Somewhere in the dark, the younger apprentice is probably nursing a swollen nose and questioning every life choice that led him to bees. And you feel oddly content. No one's shouting, no one's marching, no plagues today, just you, a hat that could smother a goat, a bell that rings when you breathe wrong, and a hive full of tiny golden workers who neither know nor care what crown sits in the capital. You lean back on your elbows, watch one last bee spiral toward its skep, and you smile, because tomorrow, you get to do it all again. The morning fog settles like a damp wool blanket, clinging to your clothes, your eyebrows, the frayed edge of your hat. Somewhere behind you, a rooster attempts confidence and fails. The meadow is quiet, except for the low hum of bees waking up for another day of pollination and passive-aggressive stinging. You slap your veil down over your face and pull on your gloves. Today's job? Hive repair. Which sounds simple. It's not. Your first stop is one of the older skeps. its side sagging like it gave up halfway through a stretch. You squat beside it and run your hand along the edge. The straw is brittle, chewed thin in places. Mice, probably, or the bees themselves, getting too enthusiastic with their wax. Either way, this hive's got problems. You fetch your kit, a leather pouch that smells of lanolin and regret, and pull out your tools, curved knife, tuft of horsehair, plug of wax, and of course, your bell. Can't forget the bell. You tie it to your wrist with the same reverence someone might reserve for wedding rings or war medals. Then you jingle once, a polite knock, coming in. You lift the skep's lid. It groans softly, and bees scatter like crumbs shaken off a blanket. No stings. Thankfully, you mutter a half-sincere apology. Bees might not understand words, but they sure react to tone. You speak gently, like calming a fussy toddler made of needles. And then comes the hat. This hat is the pride of your collection. Nearly 2 feet wide, made of thick felt, and reinforced with wire loops to keep the veil puffed out. Someone once called it a portable gazebo. You took it as a compliment. But it's more than sunshade or style. In some regions, the hat was believed to hold protective magic. Stitch 3 white feathers inside? Bees will never sting your ears. Braid in a lock of hair from a red-haired child? Good luck forever. Is any of this true? No. But are you going to risk it? Also no. Historians still argue whether beekeeping hats evolved for function or fear. Most likely, it was both. Early versions were leather sacks tied at the neck, making you look like a depressed turnip with anger issues. Over time, they gained structure. Veils were added. Charms were sewn in. It became part helmet, part amulet, and part fashion statement. For a very specific, very stung demographic, you adjust the brim and lean in. Inside the hive, the bees are calm. Their bodies glisten like tiny coins in sunlight. You spot the queen, a little longer, moving with the slow gravity of royalty. Worker bees part before her. Drones, lazy and confused as always, buzz nearby with all the ambition of a dog chasing a leaf. There's a section of collapsed comb near the bottom. Melted, maybe, or overfilled with honey. Either way, you scrape it out carefully and start patching. Bees watch you. They don't approve, but they tolerate. Like the way your aunt watches you load the dishwasher. Wrong. The bell chimes as you move. You realize you've come to rely on it, not just for tradition, but rhythm. A jingle for every step, every motion. It's soothing, like a metronome in a world where bees dictate the tempo. The morning stretches on. Mist burns off. The sun rises high and mean. You work your way through 3 more hives, pausing only when the younger apprentice limps into view. Face blotchy, hair full of thistles, and dignity completely missing. He scowls at you. You raise your eyebrows under your veil. He says nothing. You say nothing. This is beekeeper communication at its finest. You hand him a fresh veil, one that's actually sewn shut, and point him toward a mild hive. He flinches, nods, and walks off with the wary tread of someone approaching a sleeping bear wearing tap shoes. You return to your repairs. Bees crawl over your gloves like polite drunks, occasionally testing your knuckles with their tongues. It's weirdly affectionate. Once, you heard of a man who wore no gloves, said he could feel the hive's mood through bare fingers. Claimed he was never stung. He is now dead, not from bees, just fell off a cart, but still. You wear gloves. By midday, the field buzzes louder, not angry, just busy. You pull a comb and break off a corner. Bees instantly start repairing it, like tiny construction workers who don't need lunch breaks or emotional support goats. The honey drips down your glove, thick, golden. You lick it. It's warm and tastes of everything. Flowers, moss, sun, a burst of summer in your mouth. You pause to rest, kneeling by a hive and letting your eyes wander across the meadow. The skeps form uneven rows, some newer, trimmed in copper, others old, leaning like drunk uncles. Each has its own bell, its own story. You remember once hearing of a keeper who hung different chimes from each hive. Said he could tell the health of his bees by the sound. High pitch, happy bees. Dull clunk, too much moisture. No sound at all, hives empty, or haunted. You try not to think about that last one. You reach into your pouch for more wax and find, at the bottom, an old folded scrap of parchment. You forgot about this. It's a recipe for beekeepers' salve, equal parts honey, goose grease, poppy milk, and something that appears to be herbs of uncertain name. The note says it cures stings, heartbreak, gout, and nightmares. It also says, do not eat, underlined 3 times. You fold it back up and return it to its place. Medieval medicine. Always walking the tightrope between cure and culinary hazard. You finish patching the last hive just as the bell at the chapel tolls. Bees pause. Not all of them, but enough to notice. Some ancient reflex, a shared memory. You stand, brushing straw from your knees. The apprentice returns, veil intact this time. His face is calmer, less panic, more curiosity. You nod once, he nods back. No words, just a jingle of his new bell. And just like that, you're a team. Together, you turn toward the next row of hives. The meadow wide before you, the sun high above, and 1,000 bees waiting to be politely jangled at. The late afternoon light pools gold across the field, soft and heavy like melted butter. You wipe sweat from your brow with the inside of your elbow, never the gloves, never the veil, and look at your arm. 5 tiny smudges of honey and wax, like nature's version of war paint. You could wash, but honestly, you're kind of proud. By now, you've gotten used to the routine. Veil, gloves, smoker, bell, patience, and that last one is the hardest. Because let's be clear, medieval beekeeping isn't glamorous. It's not just drifting around poetic fields while bees land gently on your nose and whisper secrets in your ear. It's hauling heavy skeps in awkward positions while trying not to collapse into a patch of stinging nettles. Your back aches, your legs throb, and yet, you reach for the next hive with a smile. Because you're after something precious, honey, sweet, sticky gold. In a world where sugar is rare and expensive, honey is everything. Medicine, dessert, preservative, bribe, wedding gift, tax payment, and on rare occasions, battlefield wound filler. Yeah, it's that useful. You lift a comb, warm and golden, and feel its weight tilt your wrist. This hive is full. Back in the manor kitchens, a single jar of this could buy a roast goose, a bolt of wool, or a suspiciously specific poem from a wandering bard. Nobles hoard honey like treasure. Monasteries record it with the same care they list relics and miracles. Even peasants trade it for extra bread or forgiveness from a grumpy reeve. You break a comb open, the wax crunching softly under your fingers. And taste, sunlight, clover, a hint of something floral, maybe elderflower or dandelion. It's perfect. But there's a catch. Harvesting honey isn't just messy. It's political. See, your lord doesn't own the bees. You do, sort of, but he owns the land. Which means he's entitled to a share. So are the monks, the guild, the tithe collector, and probably the guy who once saw you sneeze near a hive and claimed divine inspiration. You do the math. It hurts more than the stings. Still, you scrape honey into clay jars, sealing them with wax and a whisper. That last part isn't required. But you found that whispering, please don't leak, into a lid improves your odds. Probably. Across the field, the apprentice is learning to carry a high frame with 2 hands and a prayer. His posture says, terror. His bell says, hope. You nod. He drops the frame anyway. A cloud of bees erupts like angry punctuation. You wince. He runs. Again. You set your jar down and sigh. The truth is, most people think of beekeepers as quiet, peaceful folk, which is partly true, but the job involves a surprising amount of running, swearing, internally, never allowed near the bees, and bracing for impact. You remember an old tale from the village. a beekeeper who trained his bees to follow him like dogs, claimed they'd swarm his enemies on command. He also claimed to be descended from bees himself, liked to sleep in the hives for warmth, was eventually banned from church for trying to baptize a queen bee in the font. He might have been your cousin. You're not entirely sure, but people feared him and respected him because honey was power. Historians still argue whether honey influenced actual politics, if bribes of sweetness shifted votes, alliances, or ecclesiastical favors. One bishop wrote a suspicious number of letters thanking Brother Thomas, whose gift of honey eased both my digestion and conscience. Make of that what you will. You cap another jar, tucking it into the basket beside your feet. It's not just the honey that's valuable. Beeswax, too, is in high demand. Candles made from tallow smell like regret and mutton. Beeswax, though, clean, long-burning, almost sacred. It lights monasteries. It anoints kings. It makes the difference between holy ambiance and smoke that smells like feet. Which is why your guild, the illustrious brotherhood of keepers, smokers, and associated bell ringers, not their real name, but close enough, takes their dues very seriously. You remember your last meeting. 20 sweaty men in a low-ceilinged barn arguing over candle quotas and whether Horace had really trained a bee to fetch coins. Spoiler: he hadn't. It just landed on a silver penny once, and he hasn't shut up about it since. Still, the guild enforces the rules. Minimum wax donations, maximum hive limits, no theft, no sabotage, no storing your neighbor's bees in your shed to borrow their luck. That last one was oddly specific, and you're pretty sure it came from personal experience. They also have an initiation ritual. You can't talk about it. Not because it's secret, because it's embarrassing. It involves chanting, smoke, and a honey cake you're not allowed to eat. You still don't know why. You take a break, lying back on a patch of grass. Your bell jingles against your chest with each breath. Above you, bees drift like stars in slow motion. You watch them, letting your eyes go soft, until they blur into a golden cloud. This moment, sore muscles, full jars, sun-warmed skin, is what makes it all worth it. The silence, the ritual, the strange community of humans and insects tied together by flowers and faith. Then you hear hooves. You sit up fast, bell clinking sharply. A rider approaches, a steward from the manor. You know that look. It's the "you owe honey" look. He dismounts with practiced irritation and holds out a scroll. It smells like ink, sweat, and unreasonable taxation. You skim it. Yep, increased tithe. Something about bees being especially blessed this season. You want to argue. You want to scream. You want to gently place a bee on his nose and let it decide. Instead, you bow, deep, smile, offer him a small jar. He nods, satisfied, rides away, doesn't even notice the bee that hitchhiked in his saddlebag. You wink at it. Good luck, little friend. Back at your crates, you start rearranging jars, planning who gets what to keep, what to trade, what to hide, and what to offer the old woman who lives near the woods. Who once gave you a charm that makes bees forgive bad jokes? You don't know if it works, but you haven't been stung on your backside since. Coincidence? You're not risking it. As the sun dips low, casting the hives in long shadows, you realize you've made it through another harvest. Bruised, sweaty, broke, but rich in sweetness, and slightly more respected than a pig herder. Slightly. You pack your tools, tie off the honey crates, and start the slow walk back to your hut. The bell chimes with each step, catching the last light like it's proud of you. Your hut smells like beeswax, old straw, and the vague suspicion of damp socks. It's not luxurious, but it's yours. A single room with a hearth, a wobbly stool, and exactly 3 spoons. 2 of them are whittled from bone. The other is technically a fork, but it tries its best. You drop your bundle of tools by the door, kick off your boots, and sit heavily on the stool. It creaks like it might file a complaint. You ignore it, There's something more important on your mind. The ritual. Telling the bees. You grab the small bell from your belt, different from the one tied to your wrist. This one is smooth, silver, worn at the handle from years of being clutched nervously. It's not flashy, not loud, but it has weight. Outside, twilight has settled. The field is quiet. Most villagers are inside, prepping whatever counts as dinner in a world where turnips are considered a treat. But you walk barefoot back to the hives. You pass the younger apprentice asleep under a tree, a smear of honey on his cheek and his veil still wrapped around one arm like a comfort blanket. Poor kid. Give him 2 weeks and he'll either be a full apiarist or back to trying to sell lucky radishes at market. You jingle your bell softly as you approach the hives. It's not required, but it feels right, like knocking before entering a friend's house. You pause in front of the nearest skep and speak. Thomas passed this morning, fell from the scaffolding, broke his neck. The bees buzz quietly, as if absorbing the information. You move to the next hive. His wife's expecting again. That'll be 6. Another hive. The barley's late. Lord Ulrich blames the miller. And so on. It's a strange ritual, this telling of the bees, whispering news to insects like their elderly aunts who can't attend the wedding. But it's older than half the churches in the region. People used to believe that bees were messengers between worlds, that if you didn't inform them of births, deaths, and major gossip, they'd become offended, stop making honey, leave the hive, die. You're not superstitious, but you're also not foolish. Historians still argue whether this practice was rooted in pagan belief systems, Christian reinterpretations, or just good old-fashioned country weirdness. Some think it was psychological, grief given form, comfort through routine. Others believe it had more to do with ensuring you checked the hives regularly. Dead bees equal no news equals oops. You finish your rounds, ending at the old hive by the ivy patch. This one's special. It's not the strongest hive, not the largest, but it hums differently, like it's listening a little more intently. You kneel, lower your voice. They're saying the queen in the castle might be sick. The bees cluster at the entrance. I'm not saying anything, mind you, just repeating. One bee lands on your knee. You pause. Well, I'll let you decide how seriously to take it. It buzzes once and flies off. You smile. Superstition or not, it feels good to speak aloud, to let the meadow carry your words. There's a kind of peace in the ritual, a softening of time. You imagine people across the centuries doing the same, kneeling beside woven hives, whispering secrets into straw, trusting that someone, somewhere, is listening. You remember your grandfather doing it, voice low and steady. He once told you that bees understand more than they let on. That they don't just make honey, they hold stories. Keep them, pass them down through vibrations and wing beats. You asked if that was true. He said, it doesn't need to be, just needs to feel like it. You stay there a while, watching the hives, feeling the warmth of the day slowly drain from the ground. Crickets begin their hesitant chirping. A breeze stirs the grass. Somewhere, an owl hoots. And then, just as you're about to stand, you hear it. Music, faint, threaded through the breeze like cobweb. A melody played on pipes. Or perhaps someone humming. You tilt your head. It's not coming from the village. You walk slowly toward the sound. Bare feet cool in the grass. Past the last row of hives. Into the grove beyond. The melody continues, soft, unhurried, familiar and strange all at once. And then it stops. You're alone. No music, no hum, just trees and moonlight and the feeling that something looked at you and chose not to be seen. You shrug. Medieval life is full of mysteries. Most of them involve mushrooms. You head back to your hut, your bell jingling gently with every step. Inside, the fire is low but glowing. You light a beeswax candle from your pouch and set it on the stool beside your bedroll. The smell is instantly comforting, warm, floral, clean. You lie down. Your bones pop like a badly played flute. And just as your eyes begin to close, You hear the faintest buzz near the window. A single bee, late to return. You watch it crawl inside, circle once, and vanish into a crack in the wall where you've long suspected a tiny hive might be forming. You smile. Don't tell the guild. You whisper. The bee doesn't answer, but it lingers. The next morning arrives not with sunlight but with shouting. Muffled at first, then sharp. You sit up, veil tangled around your arm, and blink through the haze of sleep and smoke from the banked fire. Someone outside is furious, and in medieval times, that usually means either a pig escaped, a fence collapsed, or someone accused someone else of being a witch. You poke your head out the door. It's the noblewoman, the one who owns the manor with the ridiculous peacock garden and a husband who never seems to blink. She's standing in the field, surrounded by two servants and what appears to be a traveling clergyman holding a scroll like he's about to beat someone with scripture. You squint. She's pointing at your hives. Of course, you throw on your coat, slap your bell on your wrist, and stroll over like you haven't just been sleeping next to a wall hive and drooling into your own collar. Bees, she says, turning to you like you're late to your own trial. You're bees. They're enchanted. You look at the priest. He looks at the sky, probably questioning everything. They bowed when I recited the Psalms. She says. You nod politely. Which psalm? She falters. The one about mercy. You nod again. Good choice. The bees are big fans of mercy, especially when it comes to not getting stepped on. She insists, firmly, that she's been training her bees to respond to scripture. Claims they gather in crosses when she sings, that they hum more sweetly on Sundays, and that one once landed on her cheek, as if to offer comfort, during a difficult embroidery. You glance at the clergyman. He gives you a subtle eye roll that could power a windmill. Still, this isn't just nonsense. In some circles, people truly believed bees could be educated, taught, inspired. A bishop once claimed his hive could recognize relics and would swarm anyone who approached with impure heart. Another tale tells of a nun whose bees followed her into the chapel and hovered above the crucifix during prayer. Historians still argue whether these were literal events, exaggerations, or the result of a lot of wine and not enough protein. But in the moment, you do what any good beekeeper does. You lie with charm. That's remarkable, my lady, you say. Most bees take months to memorize scripture. She beams. You brace for what's coming next. I want to expand my hives. She declares. Teach more colonies. Start a, what did the friar call it? A holy swarm. You do not groan aloud. That's progress. She invites herself to walk with you through the meadow. You lead her, past the usual hives, past the apprentice still snoring under a tree, and toward your quietest colony, the one nestled beneath the old ash tree, where bees hum with extra dignity. She clasps her hands, whispers something about divine peace, and then begins to chant. Not well, not confidently, but with gusto. To your surprise, the bees stir, not into a cross, not into a choir, but into a gentle swirl, rising like incense into the air, catching the sunlight on their wings like floating gold flakes. She gasps. You do not correct her interpretation. Bees are bees. They do weird things. Maybe they're feeling musical today. Maybe they like the ash tree's vibrations. Maybe they just wanted to mess with you. She turns to you with glowing eyes. They are touched, she says. You nod solemnly. Hand over your heart. They are listening. You offer her a tiny sample of honeycomb, blessed, of course. She accepts it like a sacred relic, thanks you profusely, and swears to return with a donation of linen for the bees' comfort. You're not sure what that means. Neither are the bees. Once she leaves, you glance at the hive. The bees resume their normal hum. One lands on your wrist and gives you a look that might be judgmental. Or maybe it's just resting. You exhale, sit on the grass, rest your bell hand in your lap. The clergyman remains behind, pacing thoughtfully. After a moment, he speaks. I don't suppose you've ever heard of Saint Modamnock? He asks. You shake your head. An Irish saint. Lived in a hut with bees. Said they followed him when he left Ireland. He had to bless them to stay behind. You nod. And did they? Some say yes. Some say they flew after him anyway. You both sit in silence, listening to the hive breathe. You like that story. The clergyman stands, dusts off his robe, and mutters something about returning to the chapel. Before he leaves, he pauses. She believes it. You know about the bees and the psalms. I know. She might send you a book of hymns. You sigh. I'll add it to the reading list. He smiles, faintly, walks off. Later, you find the apprentice trying to coax a bee off his boot by singing a folk song about cheese. It doesn't work, but you admire the initiative. You consider explaining that bees aren't here for music. They're here for work, flowers, pollen, reproduction and taxes, just like the rest of us. But then you remember the noblewoman's face, the way she lit up when the bees danced. Maybe believing they read Latin doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is that for one moment, someone saw a bit of wonder in a world full of blisters and soup made from turnips. And maybe, just maybe, the bees like the attention. The bees are in a mood today. You can feel it before you even reach the hives. The air has changed, warmer, stickier, like the world is holding its breath. And the hum, it's louder, thicker, less, lazy meadow day, more, someone poked the hive. And now we're debating revenge. You stop halfway down the path and inhale deeply. Bees don't get angry for no reason. They aren't cows or toddlers. They sting when they're annoyed, anxious, or when someone near them is being stupid. You do a quick mental inventory. Gloves? Check. Veil? Check. Bell? You raise your wrist. Jingle, jingle. Maybe they'll remember you're one of the good ones. You inch closer. The hives vibrate audibly now, like a dozen kettles on the edge of boil. And you remember what the old keeper once told you. Don't raise your voice near a hive. Bees are bad with sarcasm. Someone's been raising their voice. You round the corner and spot the apprentice. Shirt half untucked, face red, arms waving like he's trying to swat ghosts. Oh no, he's pacing in front of a skep, muttering furiously. From what you can gather, he was stung, and now, in retaliation, he's trying to scold the bees. It's not going well. You approach slowly, arms out like a negotiator. Hey, you say gently, maybe don't yell at the bugs with venomous butts. They stung me. I can see that. They did it on purpose. Unlikely. You smell like boiled cabbage. He throws his arms up and storms off. The bees hum louder. Still agitated, you sigh. Then, remembering the protocol, you kneel and speak softly toward the hive. Sorry about him. He's new. Won't happen again. You jingle your bell twice and back away slowly. The buzzing subsides. You think. Superstition runs deep in the world of beekeeping. Always has. It's not enough to just wear the gear, smoke the hive, and avoid sudden movements. You have to respect the rituals. Even the weird ones, like not cursing near the hives. People used to believe that bees hated profanity, that a single blasphemous word could sour the honey or cause an entire colony to up and leave. One particularly salty tale involves a monk who dropped his candle mold and let loose a few choice words, only to find his bees dead the next day. Coincidence? Maybe, but it gave rise to a common saying, "Speak sweet to sweet makers." Historians still argue whether this was superstition, psychological conditioning, or just a very early attempt at maintaining workplace decorum. Whatever the reason, most keepers learn fast. Keep your voice low, your words kind, and your emotions under wraps. Because bees remember. You settle onto a crate near the edge of the apiary, watching the hives with a practiced eye. One colony is still a bit twitchy. You make a note to add extra balm to the entrance later. Sometimes a smear of thyme and wax calms them. Sometimes a whispered apology helps. You've even tried playing music before. Once. Didn't go well. Bees don't appreciate lute solos. Your thoughts wander back to the apprentice. He means well. But he doesn't yet understand that the job is more than gear and technique. It's attitude, rhythm, vibe. There's a reason the oldest keepers speak softly, move slowly, and never enter the meadow angry. The bees can sense it. Somehow. You once heard of a woman who said her bees only stung her when she was lying. Said it taught her to be honest. She became a local mystic. Made a decent living interpreting bee stings as moral guidance. Of course, she also claimed bees whispered lottery numbers to her in dreams. That part hasn't aged well. Still, there's something to be said for the connection between mood and hive behavior. On calm days, the bees flow like honey. On tense ones, they bristle, guard, defend. You've seen a whole colony turn on a keeper for entering with too much swagger. Bees have no patience for swagger. You watch as the sun climbs, casting long shadows from the hives across the grass. A few bees land on your sleeve. You don't move. Let them sniff. Let them decide. One crawls up to your wrist, right to the bell. It taps it once, almost like it's checking the sound. You smile. Later, while checking the far hives, you find something odd, a strange charm, half buried in the soil near one of the skeps. It's made of twine and bone, knotted into a crude little loop. Probably local, folk magic, some villager trying to bless your bees without asking. You sigh and pocket it. Better that than leaving it there to make the bees paranoid. It's not the first time. People leave all sorts of things near the hives: flower petals, bread crusts, silver coins, locks of hair, offerings, bribes, apologies. They treat the bees like spirits, like gods. You used to scoff. Now you just nod and sweep it all into a pouch for later disposal. You spot the apprentice again, this time kneeling beside a hive. Quiet, still, hands tucked in his lap. Good. You don't interrupt. Let him learn. Let him breathe in the rhythm. You walk the perimeter once more, jingling your bell now and then, not because you have to, but because it feels right. Like saying hello to each hive. Like checking in with old friends. The hum follows you. Lower now. Softer. The meadow has forgiven the outburst. Even the bees, it seems, are capable of second chances. The guild meeting is in full swing by the time you arrive. And the smell inside the barn is an aggressive mix of beeswax, boiled onions, and men who believe personal hygiene is a political stance. You duck through the low door, your hat catching on the lintel, and take a place on a creaky bench near the back. The other keepers nod in recognition. Not warmly, just enough to say, "We remember you. You owe us wax." The Guild of Beekeepers is not a glamorous organization. It's not draped in gold or chanting sacred hymns under stained glass. It's 20 men, give or take, shouting about candle quotas and whose hive swarmed into whose orchard. The Grand Keeper, a rotund man with a voice like a grumbling bullfrog, bangs his gavel, which is really just a ladle, against a honey jar to get everyone's attention. First order of business, he bellows. The tithe. A collective groan follows. The tithe is a sore subject. Every year, the manor demands more honey and wax, for church and state. Every year, the guild complains. Every year, the tithe increases anyway. It's tradition, like hay fever and goats getting into places they absolutely should not be. The ladle bangs again. We are now required to offer an extra 12 jars of honey for the upcoming festival. To avoid famine, someone near the front mutters, or to sweeten the bishop's gruel. You stifle a laugh. There's a brief, heated debate about whether the noblewoman's singing bees count as divine assets and whether her hives are exempt from taxes. A vote is held. The result? Unclear. Possibly yes, possibly no. Definitely confusing. Then comes your turn. You rise, clearing your throat. I've completed the wax quota. You announce, plus extra, for guild use. You reach into your satchel and place 3 thick wax blocks on the table. Each is stamped with your seal, an awkward little bee that looks vaguely cross-eyed. You carved it yourself. It has personality. A few heads nod. The Grand Keeper raises one bushy brow. Accepted, he says. Then his eyes narrow. But what of the ash hive? Murmurs ripple. You stiffen. The ash hive, your quietest, oldest colony, has been doing unusually well. Too well. Producing more honey than it should. Which, in the world of beekeepers, is either a miracle or suspicious. I tend it daily, you reply, evenly, same as the rest, yet it yields thrice the average. He says, no swarms, no rot, no mites, no signs of bad luck. You hesitate. Some believe. Another keeper says, it's been blessed by the noblewoman's priest. You snort. If he blessed anything, it was probably her embroidery. Chuckles ripple. Tension breaks. Still, you know what they're really asking. Not about blessings. About secrets, tricks, cheats, fake bees. It's happened before. A keeper, decades ago, stuffed dead bees into an empty hive and glued wax combs inside to fake productivity. Claimed miraculous harvests. When discovered, he was banned from the guild and forced to take up sheep counting. Historians still argue whether he was a fraud or simply ahead of his time in theatrical beekeeping. So, you do the only thing you can. You invite inspection. Come tomorrow, you say. Bring whoever you like. I'll open every hive, especially the ash. That quiets them. You sit. The meeting drags on for another hour. Discussions about swarm rights, fence maintenance, and a proposed bee fair involving puppet shows and honey tastings. You doodle bees on your palm with charcoal. One ends up looking like a sad potato. Eventually, the meeting ends with the ritual chant, buzz, but do not sting. You all shuffle out into the evening. The sun dipping low, the shadows long and waxy. You exchange glances with a few of the older keepers. Mutual understanding, mutual suspicion. Back at your hut, you light a candle. Beeswax, your own. The flame is clean, steady, smelling faintly of sun and summer. You pour a little honey over bread and chew slowly, savoring it. The taste is different tonight. Richer, hints of mint and clover. Something almost mysterious. You wonder if the ash hive is truly just lucky, or if there's more to it. You haven't done anything different. Haven't sung psalms. Haven't whispered secrets. Haven't danced naked under the moon. Not recently, anyway. And yet, you glance at the corner of your hut. The little hive inside the wall hums faintly. Maybe the bees talk to each other across space, across colonies. Maybe they share secrets the way people share gossip, through scent, vibration, tiny dances. Maybe your bees are simply happy. Is that so strange? The next morning, 3 keepers arrive before dawn. No warning, no greetings, just hard eyes and cold tea breath. You show them everything. You open the hives slowly. Let them watch the smoke rise. Let them see the queen, the brood, the wax so clean you could mistake it for marble. You don't flinch when bees crawl up your arm. You don't hide the extra comb tucked into the back of the hive. It's all there, honest, messy, glorious. They nod, slowly. No tricks. One finally mutters, just good bees. You say nothing, just smile and stroke the top of the skep like a loyal dog. They leave. Later that afternoon, the apprentice returns with questions about fencing. You show him the crooked stakes along the meadow's edge. Explain how bees know territory, how they return to exact locations, how even moving a hive 2 feet can cause chaos, confusion. A hive's memory isn't just scent, it's space. He frowns. So if someone moved a hive, you nod. It forgets who it is. For a while, he looks thoughtful, a little sad, kind of like people. He says, you agree. By sundown, the bees are quiet, the fields are still. You sit beside the ash hive and let your fingers trail through the grass. You don't know why it's special. You don't need to. Sometimes, good things just are. Dawn comes in soft, like someone gently pulling open the shutters in your brain. You roll onto your side and stare at the tiny crack in your wall where your unofficial bee colony lives. They're quiet right now, still asleep, Or maybe just listening. Today is inspection day. Not by the guild, by you. Your hives have been thriving. Especially the ash hive, and that makes you a target. Praise is fine. Suspicion? Less so. And in the world of bees and men, too much success is almost always followed by someone sniffing around your skeps trying to borrow luck. You rise, stretch, and start your routine. Veil, gloves, bell, calm mind. You even hum a little tune. One your grandmother used to sing when churning butter. Supposedly helped the cream behave. You figure if it worked on dairy, maybe it'll help keep the bees in a good mood too. You start your rounds. Most of the hives are steady. Some need minor repairs, a new pat of wax, or just a firm talking to. You're halfway through the circuit when something catches your eye. At the edge of the grove, where your hives meet the trees, something's off. You kneel beside a skep that hasn't been opened in a few days. From the outside, it looks normal, but as you lift the lid, carefully, slowly, you see it. Dead bees. Not many, but enough. You frown. The comb is torn, messier than usual, wax smeared like someone rummaged through it. You touch the edge, it's warm. Which is wrong. There hasn't been sun yet. And then it clicks. Someone's been here. Last night, maybe early this morning. Bee thieves. It's rare, but not unheard of. Honey is valuable, and so are healthy colonies. Some keepers will do anything to get ahead, especially if they think the ash hive's good fortune is contagious. You look closer. No full frames stolen, but some cut honeycomb is missing. More than just a taste. Whoever it was, they knew how to move quietly, but not well enough, because they left behind a smear of crushed beeswax on the wooden base. And tangled in it, a single black thread. You pocket it, not because you'll start interrogating your neighbors like some kind of beekeeping detective, but because it matters. Details always do. You repair the comb gently, speaking soft reassurances as you work. The bees are agitated but not panicked. No queen loss. Thank the stars. They'll recover. But now, you're watching. Later, in the village, you make casual conversation. Visit the baker. Trade a jar of honey for bread and questions. No one says anything suspicious. But you notice one of the other keepers, Renaud, has a fresh scratch on his forearm and a new veil. Black, with a tiny rip that's been stitched. You file that away. Say nothing. Instead, you decide to test something. That afternoon, you take a handful of dried mint, mix it with ashes and honey water, and smear a thin line around the base of your best hives. Old warding trick, not because it keeps humans away, but because it leaves stains. If someone crosses it, you'll know, and if they're clever enough to wipe their shoes, well, then you'll know you've got a real problem. That night, you don't sleep. You sit near the ash hive, bell in hand, wrapped in a blanket that smells like lavender and regret. You listen. You wait. The bees are quiet, but the meadow is alive. Crickets, owls, a fox trotting along the fence line, looking for something edible that doesn't sting. And then, just before moonrise, you hear it. Rustling. A breath. A whisper of movement where there should be none. You don't move. You barely breathe. Then, soft footsteps. Grass bent under a boot. You tighten your grip on the bell and jingle it once. A sharp, clear sound. The rustling freezes. Then silence. You wait, and wait. Eventually, you hear the retreating steps. Slow, careful. You do not chase. You ring the bell again and speak softly toward the hive. They're gone. For now. In the morning, you find a smear in the ash mint line. Someone stepped in it. A large boot. Probably Renaud. You make a note, but you don't accuse. Not yet. Not unless the bees give you a clearer answer. You spend the day reinforcing hive lids. Not with locks, too loud, but with tiny charms, bells, and a few strategically placed sprigs of tansy and rosemary. Nothing like a whisper of witchcraft to keep suspicious neighbors nervous. You even dust the top of one skep with fine ash. The next time someone touches it, you'll know. The apprentice watches all this in silence, then finally asks, "Do you think someone's cursed your bees?" You shake your head. "No, but I think someone's scared of them." He frowns. "Because they're good? Because they're better." It's true. The ash hive, for reasons you still don't understand, is thriving, healthier than any other colony you've tended. No mites, no rot, honey so thick and fragrant it makes the baker weep. You don't know why, but you're not giving it up. By dusk, you find a small object placed beside the ash hive. It's a wax figure, roughly bee-shaped, with tiny wings made of bark and a crown made of thread. Someone left it there deliberately, as a gift, or a warning, or both. You pick it up, turn it over in your hands, and place it gently on the hive's roof. "Thank you," you whisper. Then you jingle your bell once and walk away, the buzzing behind you steady and sure. The next morning starts with a squawk. Not from a bee, obviously. Bees don't squawk, but from the rooster who's decided the top of your hive stand is the hill he's willing to die on. You chase him off with a puff from your smoker and a few choice words, carefully censored for the bees' benefit. They've been testy lately, and you'd rather not provoke a winged mutiny. You glance around the perimeter. No fresh footprints, no new wax dolls. The ash mint line remains undisturbed. Whoever was sneaking around seems to have gotten the message. You give a satisfied nod, then trip over a goat skull. It's just lying there, right at the edge of your fence. Clean, hollow-eyed, placed deliberately. You pause, look around. No one nearby, no movement. You exhale through your nose. Well, now it's a party. Goat skulls, for the record, are not part of your usual beekeeping toolkit. But in some circles, especially in rural corners of the kingdom where people trust herbs more than priests, charms like this are considered protective, or threatening, or both. You pick it up. It's light, smells faintly of ash and rosemary. A warning charm, perhaps, or an offering, or some village kid playing spooky games. You place it carefully on the fence post, facing outward. If someone wants to play bee magic, they can play it in full view. Let them wonder what you meant by it. As you settle into your rounds, you notice something else. One of your new hives, the one near the poppy patch, is buzzing louder than usual. Not angry, but confused. You jingle your bell and approach slowly. Inside, the comb has been rearranged. Not by you, and not by the bees. Not like this. Some of the wax has been cut into unnatural shapes, triangles, spirals, even a few letters. A primitive sigil? A prank? A coded message from someone with too much honey and not enough friends? You step back. This is getting weird. In the old days, keepers would braid herbs around their hives, lavender, sage, marjoram, to align the bees. Others whispered chants, played flutes, or even fenced their hives with iron nails to ward off spirits. Superstition and science danced together like awkward cousins at a wedding. You never knew where one ended and the other began. You remember hearing a tale about two rival keepers who waged an entire buzz war, using nothing but charms and fence magic. One hung rabbit paws from his posts. The other countered with owl feathers and a stolen church candle. Both claimed their honey got sweeter. Both ended up with swarms in their underwear. Historians still argue whether these bee wars were metaphorical or just aggressively rural nonsense. You suspect a little of both. Whatever this is, goat skulls, sigils, charmed wax, it's something new. Or rather, something old creeping back. You decide it's time to reinforce your defenses. Not just the fences, the ritual ones. You start with a ring of herbs. Lavender, thyme, and yarrow, strung together with flax twine and tied along your fence posts. Not because you believe it keeps thieves away, but because it might make them think twice. You hang tiny bells from the tops of your skeps, extra ones, each with a different pitch. If someone moves a hive, you'll hear it. And finally, the centerpiece, your own charm. A circle of wax, inside, pressed carefully, a thorn, a poppy petal, a fragment of honeycomb, and a strand of your own hair. You press it into the soil beneath the ash hive. Whisper something you barely understand. It's not a spell, not really, just a promise. That evening, you light a beeswax candle in your hut and sit by the door, watching the hives. The apprentice joins you, bringing a chipped mug of herbal tea and a face full of questions. Why the charms? He asks. Because someone's messing with the hives. Do you think it's Renaud? You shrug. Maybe, maybe not, but whoever it is, they know enough to be dangerous. He sips his tea. Do you believe the herbs help? You jingle your bell softly. I believe in caution. He nods, thoughtful. Then he says, I found this near the grove. He pulls out a piece of bark. On it, etched with what looks like a hot needle, is a bee, or at least, a crude drawing of one. Underneath, a spiral. You hold it up to the firelight. It looks like a symbol you've seen before. Not in books, in old carvings, on the wall of a chapel, on a worn brooch found in a market. You don't know what it means, but your gut doesn't like it. You take the bark and toss it into the fire. Let's stick to proper hives. You say, no art projects. That night, you sleep restlessly, dream of buzzing, louder than normal, of bees pouring from the ash hive in a great cloud, forming shapes in the sky. A circle, a spiral, a face you almost recognize. When you wake, the candle has burned out. The hut is quiet, and there, on your windowsill, is a single bee, watching. You spend the morning watching bees, not working the hives, not smoking or scraping or tending, just watching. From the worn stool near the ash hive, you sit quietly, veil flipped back, sipping weak tea and trying to read the language of wings. The air is alive with motion. Bees dart, spiral, land, vanish. Some trace patterns through the air like invisible calligraphy. Others wobble drunkenly, overloaded with pollen like knights returning from battle with spoils strapped to their legs. But you're not looking for beauty. You're looking for signs. The ash hive has changed. It's subtle, but once you've spent enough time with bees, you learn to feel it. The vibrations are lower, the workers more cautious, the drones, missing. That gets your attention. You lift the lid carefully, bell jingling once as if to say, coming in. Inside, the comb is thick with activity. But the drones, the male bees, useless for gathering or stinging, but essential for the hive's future, are conspicuously few. You search the frames. 2, maybe 3. Strange. Drones are often expelled at the end of the season. Yes, but this is early. Too early. You lift one of the wax bars and hold it to the light. No queen cells. No sign of disease. The workers are healthy, organized, productive. And yet, the queen isn't here. You blink. You check again. No queen. In a hive, the queen is everything. She lays the eggs. She emits the pheromones. She is the center of gravity for 10,000 tiny minds. Without her, the hive fractures, weakens, wanders. You double check, triple check. She's gone. You sit back hard on your heels. The grass damp under your knees. No queen. No drones. No swarm signs. No superseizure cells. Just absence. You whisper, where did she go? The bees don't answer. In the lore of old keepers, a queenless hive is a cursed hive, a hollow crown. There are stories, strange ones, of queens vanishing in the night, taken by spirits, witches, or simply melting into mist. One tale says a queen may leave if her keeper lies to the bees. Another claims she'll abandon her post if a rival queen sings in her dreams. Historians still argue whether these were metaphors for swarming behavior or just dramatic flair from people who spent too much time in fields and not enough in reality. You're not sure what to believe right now, because this doesn't feel like a swarm. It feels like disappearance. You fetch the apprentice. He's sitting by the garden, attempting to coax bees onto his finger with a chunk of candied carrot. It's not going well. You wave him over and explain. He frowns. No queen at all? You nod. Could someone have Taken her? You hesitate. Maybe. Why? You don't know. But it makes your skin crawl. You start your investigation by checking the other hives. Each one is fine, busy, loud, queens accounted for. Just the ash hive is off. And then, something clicks. You remember the sigils, the carved bark, the arranged wax. You remember the noblewoman, her obsession with psalms and bee songs. You remember the goat skull. You look toward the manor house. That afternoon, you make your way through the village, past carts of cabbages and geese that eye you like you owe them money. The manor rises at the far end, smug and sunlit, its gardens perfectly trimmed, every hedge in obedience, every flower chosen for aesthetic, not pollen. You knock at the gate. A servant greets you with all the warmth of a damp tile. You ask for the lady of the house. She arrives, glowing and distracted, in a gown the color of marmalade and embroidered with, of course, bees. You've come, she says, delighted. I was hoping you would. You raise an eyebrow. You were? She nods. They came to me. You stiffen. They? The bees, she says dreamily. Last night, they arrived at my window. A dozen of them, singing. And then this morning, look. She leads you inside, into a sunroom flooded with light. And there, in a glass case, is a skep. Inside it, a queen. Fat, healthy, radiant, and definitely not one of hers. You feel cold. You took her? You whisper. She laughs. No, of course not. They brought her to me. As a gift. I think they knew. Knew what? She smiles. That I'm ready. Ready for what? She doesn't say. You lean in closer, inspecting the hive. It's active, but strange. Too calm. Too silent. The workers barely move. No waggle dances. No noise. You've seen this before. A poisoned hive. They're not well, you say. She frowns. They're blessed. They're dying. She blinks. You straighten. I need to take the hive. No, they'll die. That's not your concern anymore. You look at her. Something in her face is off. Not madness. Conviction. You realize. She didn't steal the queen. She believes the bees chose her. Back in the field, the ash hive sits hollow. You return the next morning with your tools. A new queen, from a distant skep, introduced gently, slowly, a delicate process. The workers are cautious, but receptive. You hope. That night, you sit again beside the hive, bell resting in your palm. You don't ring it. You listen. The buzz is returning, slowly. Not triumph, not joy, just continuation. And for now, that's enough. The days that follow feel like waiting for someone to wake up. The ash hive buzzes faintly now, a soft thrum just below hearing. The new queen has been accepted, at least. You think she has. The signs are there. The gentle clustering. The resumed patrols at the hive entrance. The workers ferrying pollen like tiny winged porters. But it's not the same. Something's missing. Not just the old queen. A mood, a memory, a hum. You spend your days working slower, more methodical. You talk to the bees more. Tell them what you're doing. Narrate your every move. They say bees like that. They like to be included. Your grandfather once said, picking wax from his sleeve. They're social creatures, nosy little busybodies. He also said honey cured toothaches, gout, and ungrateful children. So you learn to fact check. Still, you keep up the chatter. It helps. You whisper updates on the weather. Mention the shortage of barley. Even tell them about the time you tripped over your own boots in front of the reeve. The bees listen. Maybe. Word spreads in the village. Honey is in short supply. Not just yours. Everywhere. The summer's been too dry. Wildflowers withered early. Hives are producing less. Tempers are running high. Trade is tight. And then comes the plague. Not the plague. Not that one. But a sickness. A fever. A cough that turns lungs to soup and voices to rattles. First in the next village over. Then a merchant's wife. Then the blacksmith's boy. You hear whispers in the market. It's the curse. They say. The bees are angry. You roll your eyes, externally. At least. But part of you wonders. Because honey has power. In the medieval mind, it's not just food, it's medicine, alchemy, a conduit for the divine. Honey preserves, so it must ward off rot. Honey is golden, so it must contain sunlight. Honey is sweet, so it must be holy. Monks record its applications in neat script: sore throats, infected wounds, memory loss, melancholy. Mix it with vinegar for a poultice, with wine for a tonic, with crushed pearls for a miracle. Historians still argue whether it helped or just made people feel better while they died. Either way, it became a symbol of hope, which means people want yours badly. One morning, a man in fine clothes rides to your hut. His boots are clean, his beard is oiled, his expression says, "I will pretend to be polite for 5 minutes, and then I'll shout." He represents the manner, the noblewoman. Specifically, he's come for your honey. All of it, he says. You blink. No. He raises an eyebrow, like you just barked at a candle. It is required, he insists, for the infirmary, for the chapel, for the lady's comfort. You fold your arms. I can give some, not all. He sniffs. The lady believes your bees were touched. Sacred. She insists their honey is different. You nod. It is. That's why I need to keep it. A standoff. Finally, he relents, takes half your jars and promises a receipt, which you will never receive. As he leaves, a bee lands on his collar. You watch it, just to see what it does. It doesn't sting him, but it lingers. You smile. Later that day, the apprentice approaches with news. The noblewoman's hive is dead. Not weakened, not slow. Dead. Every bee. Still, wings curled, tongues out. He saw it himself. They opened the skep. The queen lay at the center, stiff and alone, surrounded by the quiet. No signs of mites, no rot, just silence. You nod. Then, quietly, you walk to the ash hive. You don't ask questions. You just sit beside it. The new queen is laying. The workers are moving with purpose. The hum is returning. You close your eyes and rest your hand gently against the skep. It's warm. A week passes. The fever in the village slows. People recover. Not all, but enough. You trade honey in tiny amounts, measured in spoonfuls. It's all you can spare. You mix it into broth. Drop it onto cloth. Hand it to crying mothers with shaking hands. You even give a jar to the manor, unasked. Quietly. No messengers this time. Because you remember the noblewoman's face. Not when she was radiant, talking about bee songs, but when she opened her hive and found it still. Because for all her strangeness, she loved them, and she lost them. And you understand that pain. That evening, as the sun sets in streaks of orange and rose, you sit with the apprentice beside the ash hive. He's learning to listen now. To wait. You explain the signs of health, the movement, the sound, the balance between stillness and flight. You can feel it, you say, in your chest, when a hive is right. He nods, like a heartbeat. Exactly. You lean back in the grass, arms behind your head, bell resting on your stomach. The sound of bees weaves through the twilight like music. And for a moment, the world feels full. You dream of the old queen that night. She's enormous, gilded, wings spread wide. She speaks with a voice like rustling leaves. I left because I had to. You want to ask why. But you wake up before she explains. Figures. The morning breaks damp and gray. Not stormy, just soft. The kind of morning that soaks through your sleeves before you even notice and makes the bees sluggish until the sun convinces them to move. You sit on your stool with a chunk of bread in one hand and your bell gently jingling on your wrist as you twist your arm to work out the stiffness. Another long night beside the hives. Another dream you half remember. Something about bees carrying candles through the sky, forming constellations in the shape of old faces. You're still not sure if that one was beautiful or terrifying. The apprentice arrives before you've finished your tea, looking flustered, holding a folded cloth like it's about to explode. You raise an eyebrow. He opens the cloth. Inside, a grayish paste, thick and glistening. You blink. Is that? He nods. Royal jelly. Now, royal jelly is a bit of a misnomer. It's not jelly. It's not royal. It's a secretion, yes, that kind, from nurse bees, used to feed larvae, and especially the queen. It's rich, fatty, full of protein and strange, mysterious power. Some believe it grants vitality. Others swear it sharpens the mind, restores youth, or cures impotence, depending on who's asking. And now, apparently it's the hottest item in the region. There's a merchant, the apprentice says. He's buying jars, paying in coin, says it's for scholars, or kings, or something else. You poke the jelly with your spoon. It jiggles. Royal jelly isn't easy to harvest. You need queen cells. You need timing. You need bees that won't sting you in the neck when you go poking around their nurseries. You sigh. Do we need the money? The apprentice shrugs. Could fix the roof. Maybe buy a second spoon. Tempting. You spend the day preparing the hives. Not to harvest jelly, not yet, but to encourage queen cell production. You section off part of the ash hive, introduce new frames, and adjust the balance. It's delicate, slightly cruel, like persuading the bees that the queen might not be doing her job quite right, just enough to trigger a backup plan. They respond within hours. Nurse bees start raising a few potential queens. And with that, they begin producing royal jelly. You only take a little. Just a taste. It smells sharp, not like honey, like wet bread and crushed leaves and something you can't quite name. You place the spoon on your tongue. It tastes awful, like if a sock had dreams of being yogurt. Later that night, you carry a tiny sealed jar to the village. The merchant is easy to spot. Foreign clothes, polished boots, too many rings, and the look of a man who finds medieval life charming only from a distance. He examines the jar, dips a finger in, sniffs, then nods. I'll take 3 dozen. You nearly laugh. That's more than I can get in a month. He shrugs. The demand is high. Nobles, alchemists, surgeons, they're convinced it heals memory, grows hair, makes men immortal. You raise an eyebrow. Does it? He smiles. Do you want the truth or the price? Fair enough. You agree to trade 1 jar per week. Just enough to keep him interested. Not enough to starve the hive. Back at your hut, you write a mark in the ledger. 1 jar, 1 coin, roof tile money. The apprentice watches. Do you think it's true? About the powers? You shake your head. I think it's rare, and people love rare things. He nods slowly. Do you think we should try it again? You eye the jar. Only if we run out of tea. As the weeks pass, word spreads. Not just about the royal jelly. About your bees. They're thriving again, humming louder, making honey that tastes like summer and memory. Locals swear their aches go away after a spoonful. A child's rash faded overnight after a dab. Even the manor cook says her cakes rise taller when baked with your honey. You didn't do anything different. Except maybe talk to them more. You kneel by the ash hive and whisper, "Thanks." They buzz. And then you notice something new. At the hive's edge, a stone. Small, carved, a spiral on one side, a bee on the other. You lift it gently. Underneath, a scrap of cloth, red thread, a lock of hair, a charm. Not yours. You glance around. No one. You take the charm inside. Place it in the drawer where you keep strange things. The bark carving. The tooth-shaped wax. The ash and mint sketch. You're not scared, but you're definitely being watched. Later, in the market, you hear whispers. A man in the next village tried to make his own hive. Claimed he could copy your method. Bought bees from a trader. Set up near a wildflower field. Even carved charms into the posts. The hive collapsed. The bees turned on him. He swears one stung him in the eye while he was sleeping. You pretend to be shocked. That evening, the apprentice shows you a new frame from the ash hive. It's full. The honey glows. But tucked in the corner, hidden under a thick cap of wax, is something strange. Not brood, not pollen. A coin. Buried there, shiny and perfect, as if the bees tucked it away like treasure. You lift it. It's old, worn. One side bears a spiral. The other, a faint outline of a bee. You both stare at it. Then you return it to the hive, just in case it's theirs. The weather shifts. The air thickens, heavy with the scent of rain and the distant promise of thunder. The bees slow down, as they always do before a storm. Their paths tighter, their buzz more deliberate. You adjust your veil and glance skyward. Low clouds, bruised purple, curling at the edges like old parchment. A storm's coming, not just in the sky. The apprentice finds you near the ash hive, his face pale, holding a folded note. No seal, just wax smeared across the fold like someone tried to make it official and gave up halfway. You read it. The noblewoman is requesting, demanding, an audience. Not through a messenger this time. She's coming to you. You groan. You tidy up the area as best you can, brushing straw from the bench, checking that your boots aren't covered in last week's jam, and sweeping a few unfortunate bee corpses from the path. She arrives just as the first raindrops begin to fall, wearing a cloak the color of raw honey and a veil of embroidered lace. Absurdly impractical for a farm visit. She doesn't speak right away. She simply stands in front of the ash hive, eyes closed, lips moving silently. A prayer? A poem? An insult whispered in rhyme? Eventually, she turns to you. They're not the same. You nod. No, they've changed. They're watching me now. You want to say, you had a queen stolen from them. What did you expect? But instead, you offer, bees remember. She sighs and steps closer. I made a mistake. You stay silent. The storm rumbles. I tried to force it. She says, with charms, with symbols. I thought I could summon their grace. You thought they were pets. She winces. No, I thought they were gods. Oh, that explains things. She paces slowly between the hives, trailing her fingers across the wooden frames without touching. The bees tolerate her, but they don't welcome her. No one lands on her hand. No playful spirals in her wake. Just a hum, watching, measuring. I've brought something, she says. She reaches into her cloak and produces a jar, small, dark, sealed with red wax. She hands it to you. Inside, comb, not honey, not brood, charred wax. You recognize it. It's from the hive that died. I wanted to be part of something, she says, not wasted. You think for a moment. Then, carefully, you walk to the back of your field, to the edge of the grove where the oldest skeps sit. You dig a small hole with your hands, place the jar inside, cover it with soil, mark the spot with a flat stone. The noblewoman nods. Then she leaves. No horses, no attendants, just her and the rain. That night, the wind howls. You and the apprentice scramble to tie down lids, reinforce frames, stack stones on the skep roofs. The bees hunker inside, clinging to wax and each other, their tiny world battened against the storm. You barely sleep. Too much noise, too much lightning. But when the sun rises, timid and apologetic, all the hives are still standing. Even the ash. You sit with your tea, rainwater still dripping from the eaves, and watch as the first bee of the day emerges. She flies a slow, lazy circle, then darts off into the grass. You smile. A few days later, a traveler visits. Not a merchant, not a noble, a woman in rough clothes, older than most stones, with a crooked staff and a laugh like gravel in a jar. She doesn't give her name, but she walks straight to the ash hive and crouches down like she knows it personally. You found the coin, she says without turning. You blink. She reaches into her satchel and tosses something at your feet. Another coin. Spiral. B. They're from before, she says. Before what? Before the stories got rewritten. She looks up. They remember. You know. The bees? She chuckles. Not just them. Before you can ask more, she's gone, leaving nothing but muddy footprints shaped like clovers. Later, you find the apprentice painting. Not well, but sincerely. He's copied the spiral, the bee, the frame. He's making charms. You say nothing. He's earned that. Harvest comes late this year. The hives, slow to recover, suddenly roar to life. The ash hive leads the charge. The honey is thick, dark, rich, not clover, not thyme, something deeper, older. You taste it, and suddenly remember your grandfather's stories. The one about the beekeeper who whispered to the wind. The one about the swarm that chased off a tax collector. The one about bees carrying souls from one world to the next. You never believed him. Now, you're not sure what you believe. But you thank the hive anyway. And you leave the coin exactly where the bees placed it. At sunset, you walk the perimeter. Your bell jingles with each step. The herbs are overgrown. The skull is mossy. The charms on the fence sway in the breeze. You lean against a post and exhale. From the ash hive, one bee rises, circles, then lands gently on your shoulder. And stays. The first frost comes quietly. One morning, you wake to find the meadow silvered, each blade of grass etched in white lace. The breath from your nose swirls in lazy spirals, and your boots crunch faintly as you walk toward the hives. Even the birds are hesitant, no song. Just a single blackbird making contemplative noises near the hedgerow. The bees are still, not dead, just dormant. You crouch beside the ash hive and listen. The hum is buried deep now, way down near the heart of the hive, where the cluster curls tight around the queen, a living furnace of wings and warmth. You place your hand on the hive's outer wall and feel it. A pulse, steady, faint. You smile. They've made it. Winter is the beekeeper's longest vigil. There's no more honey to harvest, no more comb to scrape. Just waiting, hoping the hives hold, that the cold doesn't seep in too deep, that the food stores last until spring. Some keepers leave their bees alone, lock up the shed and wait for snowmelt. But not you. You visit daily, whisper through the skeps, knock gently to check the weight. Sing sometimes, old, slow songs that sound like they've been passed down from candle to candle. The apprentice teases you. They're bees, he says, not choir members. You shrug. Maybe they like the music. Maybe they're rolling their eyes under all that fuzz. You offer him a cup of warm honeyed tea. He shuts up. The noblewoman doesn't visit anymore. She sent a letter, once, scribbled, ink-stained, full of apologies and questions and a pressed violet. You didn't reply, but you keep the letter, folded, tucked inside the drawer with the charms, the bark, the coin, the weird little archive of your strange, buzzing year. And then, one evening, it begins. The hum, not loud, not alarming, just steady. It wakes you before dawn, seeps through the wall like a memory. You wrap a cloak around your shoulders and step outside. The sky is still dark. The frost is silver. The stars blink overhead like tired candles. But the hives, especially the ash hive, are vibrating. You go to it, kneel, and then you see it. A single bee, crawling out of the skep entrance, moving slowly, purposefully. Behind her, another, and another. You frown. Too early. It's still winter, but the bees keep coming. Not swarming, not panicked, just emerging. You light a candle, hold it up. The light flickers across their wings. They don't fly, just walk, climbing out onto the cold surface of the hive, gathering like pilgrims. You whisper, "What are you doing?" And then you see it. At the edge of the hive, pressed into the wax, another coin. New, identical to the first. You pick it up. It's warm. The apprentice stumbles out of the hut, hair wild, eyes blinking. "Did you hear that?" You nod. He sees the bees. "Are they leaving?" You shake your head. "They're waiting." "For what?" You don't know. You sit beside them as the sky lightens. A slow, gray dawn. Eventually, the bees return inside, one by one, like a curtain being drawn. You stay seated, long after the last one disappears. The coin rests in your palm. Still warm. You carve a third spiral into the old fence post. 3 now. No one tells you what they mean. But the bees approve. The wind down begins. The days grow shorter. You move slower. The hives sleep longer. You check each one carefully. The way a parent peeks into a quiet room. Just enough to hear breath. To feel life. You keep the charms. Replace the worn threads. Refresh the herbs. Not because you believe they work, but because, maybe, the bees do. And that's enough. The apprentice talks about spring. New hives. Moving farther down the slope. Expanding. You nod, half listening. Your hand rests on the ash hive. Still warm. Sometimes, at night, you hear the hum again. Low, soft, comforting. Not inside your hut. Inside you. As if, over time, your own body has learned to match their rhythm. To echo their quiet persistence. You hum back. When spring comes, it will come all at once, bright, wet, loud. But not yet. Now is for quiet, for listening, for remembering. You lie back in the grass. The stars fade. Your bell rests silent on your wrist. You close your eyes. And sleep, finally, comes like honey. Slow, golden, buzzing with dreams.